It's obviously shift for American policy, but the direct reference to this balance of power is, I think, a really realistic affirmation of how the president has been conducting his foreign policy and sort of an acknowledgement that the unipolar moment that people have been speaking about for many years is essentially over. And we now have these new challenges to grapple with. I also think this emphasis on the Western Hemisphere and specifically on the concept of sovereignty were a really good reflection of some of the policy choices that we've seen the president undertake over the last few months, almost full year. Uh, what I thought was missing on the sovereignty point was a little bit more of an understanding that sovereignty in 2025 is no longer just about borders, right? Sovereignty is also about making sure that we can protect ourselves from foreign malign influence that's coming to us through cyberspace. And while that was alluded to in the national security strategy, it wasn't really borne out either in the text nor in some of the policies that we're seeing so far in the Trump administration. I also thought within the Latin America strategy, one thing that was missing was more of the positive agenda. What does it look like for the United States to have a strong, mutually supportive relationship with Latin America? And I think that matters because when you ask Latin American countries why they would choose to partner with us versus why they would choose to partner with China, many times they actually speak more about the virtues and values side of the equation. So if we're not speaking about that, it makes the economic cooperation a little bit more challenging than we've historically seen. In terms of what our capabilities are here and where are the areas for improvement, there's really been three areas in which we've been largely limited. First is the private sector. The second is the regulations that we've imposed on our own agreements within the government sector. And then last but not least is soft power. So in some cases, US companies are not actually even bidding for contracts in the hemisphere. So it's important that we make sure that there are incentives that are created by the US government to make sure that private companies are willing to bid on these contracts and are able to price themselves so that they're actually competitive with some of the Chinese companies. As it relates to our own restrictive regulations, this is now thankfully being changed by Congress. So hopefully that will open a lot of opportunities for the Development Finance Corporation. And then that third portion, which is the soft power portion, was really great to hear in the national security strategy that soft power continuously was mentioned as one of the key reasons why the United States is strong. But we actually need to see a focus on soft power in the policy space as much as we see it in the rhetoric in the national security strategy. What we've actually seen within Latin American countries is very little commentary about it. I think it's important to note that China responded. So China pushed out its white paper. And while they didn't reference the United States directly, they did use language that you could see was really trying to take advantage of a potential perspective that the United States was moving towards a more, quote, bullying kind of mentality. It's not clear to me that that's how Latin American countries are perceiving this. Few of them have said anything, but I think where we can see their approach to President Trump's administration is largely in how they're reacting to his Venezuela policy. The only thing that I would add is that lack of complaint doesn't necessarily mean endorsement. So once again, I think the United States would really benefit and be able to achieve some of the goals of the national security strategy if we did reinvest in some of the soft power elements and commercial investment, making it really clear that this administration has a positive agenda for the region as well, if we want to see our alliances grow and expand the way the NSS seems to hope that they will. I think President Trump's interest is very much about making sure that we're preserving US security. And he understands that what happens in Venezuela very rarely stays in Venezuela. So I actually think this is, in some respects, a perfect encapsulation of his national security strategy.